Welcome everybody to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm your host, ADHD and Attention Coach Jeff Copper, and today we're here with Dr. Sharon Saline. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Great to be here again.
She's a trained mental health professional. And
I'm a psychologist.
And I'm a coach. By the way, I got a C in Psych 101. That's the extent of my mental health training. So I'm just
I don't think that's
putting
true.
that on the table. But anyway, what's interesting is that we were having a conversation before this video, because we're shooting a couple others, about people getting started. And it was interesting because she started talking about her philosophies, and I have my philosophies. And at the end of the day, I think it really comes together in what I call self-observation. So if you would, tell me about your thoughts about when people are starting, the easy stuff, hard stuff. If you could just explain your thoughts on that.
So I actually think this has a lot to do with self-evaluation, that very last executive functioning skill to develop, also known as metacognition, which is the capacity to observe yourself and how your actions affect others. And what I was talking about in terms of self-evaluation is that before you start a task, before you start any task, it's useful to think about what the pattern of work is that you like best. Are you someone who, when you sit down at your computer, you want to spend 10 minutes looking at some email or, buying a book that you're looking for, and then you want to dive into the meaty stuff, and then you take something that's a little bit easier? What's the pattern? Or are you someone who likes to, when you sit down at your computer, do the hard thing first, and then do the medium thing, and then the easy thing when your attention is, most tired, and you're less focused? That will really help you when you approach a project. And so I think this dovetails with self-observation.
So my way I go about it is that if you're going to sit down on a project, it requires executive functioning, and unless you're really excited about it, because the dopamine will get you going, it requires a certain amount of effortful booting up of the thought process and load everything in your head so you can begin to think about it. And different people have different rituals, if you will, that get them into that. And you're talking about a ritual. I look at it from the process perspective of when you're sitting down, what are your rituals in order to load that stuff in your mind? Sometimes it's you sit down at your desk after being away for a period of time and you're going through the emails and you're getting rid of all the mental clutter, but at the same time you're starting to think about what has to happen. It's kind of like when you're on the way to work in the morning, you start thinking about your day.
So you're sort of warming up while you're doing that easy thing.
It's a booting up process, and there's people that I've had is, okay, when you need to get into that, what's your recipe? Well, I get to Starbucks, I have my coffee, I sit down, I go through these types of things, and I begin to look at it, you're effortlessly kind of bringing the stuff to mind. And I find that some people, if they've got to do a project, because of working memory, and I learned a lot of this from Dr. Barkley, it's very easy if you start to talk to somebody about the project that you're going to do.
Exactly, that's good.
Because it starts to help you recall, like you think of a computer, the hard drive spins and it's looking for the information on that, it's there. When your mind is trying to reflect back on stuff, it's like that hard drive that's kind of spinning. I learned from Dr. Olivardi, he said, sleep is like defrag for the brain. It takes everything and puts it back where you can find it.
Exactly.
And so when you're sitting there trying to do that stuff and you're talking, it's helping you extract the ideas and bring that into your head. And then your mind is into it, because they say, I have a hard time getting started. It's once I get started, it's okay. A couple things are happening. When you're talking about it and you're loading up your mind, but I find a lot of procrastination is rooted in ambiguity. When you're talking to somebody about that, you're actually talking out loud and you're getting nonverbal feedback a lot from them. That's helping you pull that stuff together. Here's the point of the video. She looks at it one way and I look at it another, and it looks kind of completely different, but really it's the same thing. It's about self-observation.
Exactly.
And witnessing it. I like to look at more an underneath version, kind of. Hers to me is a little bit more symptomatic. It really doesn't matter. I used to be a master swim coach, and I would explain to people when I was teaching them swim, the engineers, I would explain Bernoulli's principle, how the pitch of your hand creates lift and pulls you forward, and they would eat that up. I mean, that was in the brain. Other ones couldn't get it, and I said, listen, just count the number of strokes. If you did it in 20, get it down to 15. I don't care how you do it, and they'll just figure it out. It's the same stuff, we're just coming at it from different ways. And I think the key that we can agree on is to pause, and when we're getting into a project, notice your rituals or however you do that, because you have your own recipe. And if you can begin to define that recipe, you can photocopy that recipe and execute with intent. So
I think that's a really important point. So the thing is, you observe yourself. You notice what you need that would get your engine kind of warmed up while your hard drive is loading. Is that, weeding out emails that are unnecessary? Is that, putting on some music? Is that opening tabs, you figure that out. Then you think about, well, do I like to do something easy first?
Yep.
Do I want to get something under my belt accomplished before I dig into that harder stuff? Or do I want to just start off with the harder stuff because I have the clearest concentration and then go from there? Both of these things work together to help you make you more efficient and more effective.
And at the end of the day, everybody has their own recipe. Believe it or not, you just have to determine what your recipe is. And when you have it, like if you make your grandma's pound cake and you know the recipe, you get the same pound cake every time. You just have to undo it. So with that, thank you so much for coming on the show.
You're welcome so much for having me.
Take care, everybody.